copy the link and send it to me. You can mute and Zoom, mute yourself and Zoom.
Hey, Anita, Ira. So let's give a few more minutes.
Take your time.
Oh, we lost Ira. Hey guys, let's wait for maybe 3-4 more minutes, see if more people join, and then otherwise we can get started. All right, guys, I think we can get started. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So what we discussed last week was I want to refresh some of the concepts that I haven't shared yet, Ira. So okay, so last week we had a lot of discussions around lists, right? So just wanted to start off the class to see if you guys played with this, and if not, we can go through another round of this, and then we can switch over to other topics. So before that, I want to ask, anybody done any reading? We talked about till chapter 9 we completed last week. Any questions so far? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
No question from my side.
Okay, so I guess my question is, have you guys practiced it? You had a 2 weeks break, or actually a week break.
Yeah, to some extent. Whatever we went through, I just practiced that.
Okay. Great. So let's take the first half hour and go through some of the concepts that we discussed last week, right? So let's look at this code that I have here on the list.py. Let me see who else joined here. All right. Okay. Welcome, Ahmed. Okay. So when you run this code, let me go through from the beginning, right? So the first one is L equals an empty list, right? So we discussed about list last week. So this is an empty list. So if you look at the results here, let me clear this and run again. So the first one is an empty list, okay? The second one is you have L equals 1, 2, 3, then ABC 1.23, and another empty list, right? So this is 4 items, right? So there are 4 items in this in this list, where you have 1, 2, 3, ABC 1.23, and an empty curly braces. So now you have nested sublist. The third one is a nested sublist. So a list can have nested sublists. So in this case, you have Bob as the first element, 40.0 as a second element, and then you have another list within this list. Okay, so you have dev and manager as part of the components of the list. So the list itself has got 3 elements. The first is Bob, the second is 40, and the third one is a sub list, which is dev and mgr. Okay, so that's what the third list is. Okay. So in Python, you can also do this concept called, like, if you want to expand or shred this Python word into different list components, you can do that. So when you do that, you can see that it converts the string into individual list elements in sequence. So you have PY, THON, or individual list elements here. So that's what this means. And then you have a range function in Python that gives you a range. So the range is starting from -4 to 5. So that's what the range function will do. Any questions so far? So I think since you guys had a break, and I see some new faces in the group today, so I think it'll be best, we revise this one more time before we move on to the additional topics that I have planned for today. So if you guys want to practice along this with me, go ahead and do that. I see Raji, Raji, I know you missed a couple of classes, so not sure if you have Tony deployed on your machine. So, or if you have any other Python editor, go use them to write down this code and practice it. Okay. So when you do that, the list range is -4 to 5, you can see that the range of numbers starts from -4, but then it doesn't include, so that the way Python works is it doesn't include the upper limit or the upper boundary of the range, right? So it's always negative -1. So you'll have -4 to 4. That's what you see here. Okay. And so the next one is like, what does L of 7 means, right? So it's the index, right? You're looking into the index number 7 within that list, right? So the list elements are -4, -3, -2, -1, so on and so forth. So it starts with 0. -4 is index 0. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the 7th index is number 3. So that's why you're getting the value as 3 here. Okay. And so the next one is, so what does length of L means, right? So the length of, the other one is the enumerate, right? So when you do an enumerate between two indices, right? So you're saying 0 to 5 is what you want, right? So when you do that enumeration, it's always going to start from 0 is -4, and then it counts through 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is what it means, and this is the results you get here. That is the enumeration between two indices. Okay, and so the length of this list, right? It's basically you add these two elements, and that will be the length, and the length of the range is itself is 9, right? So don't count the negative, but just count the numbers. So 4 plus 5 equals 9, and that's what the length of the list means, right? So you have, or you can count them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 elements in the list here. I'm going to pause here to see if you have any questions. Any questions, guys? Vasisht, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. You're able to see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just for your information, you can download this editor called Thonny, Thonny.
Yeah.
And and then you can write the code in Thonny. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else, guys? Otherwise, I'll call names here. Ahmed, Anita, Arti, You guys have any questions so far?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
No, I'm good. Karan, I just had a question that you said that we can try this. So, are you referring to one particular lecture or from the beginning? Like,
No, I'm just revisiting the last class's content.
okay,
Okay, not from the big. I mean, we can
Not-
do that if you guys want me to spend another 10 minutes to go over some of the concepts here. Okay, we can do that as well. What do you guys think? Do you want me to do that? I mean, the more reinforcement, the better for you guys. I don't mind doing that.
yeah, I wouldn't mind it either, but I don't want to waste other people. Like if they are at their level, then just I don't want to waste their time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, why don't we do this? Let me go through the list first, and then I will go through some of the concepts that I have planned for today, and then we can quickly go over the other topics, uh, just to round it up, right? So the what I have done so far is like, today I was planning on chapter 10 and 11, which is introducing Python statements and assignments and expressions. Um, so we could just do, from start to 11, chapter 11, could do a quick run through. That way, you guys have a fairly good idea. Maybe at some point I want to do like a little test, maybe we can do that next week and I can come up with with a list of questions,
Yeah.
and maybe we can do that, like for the chapters that we have covered so far before we get into the other topics. I was thinking about that, but let's do that next week. Okay. So let's see, has anybody else joined here? Keep getting this chimes, but it doesn't look like anybody is joining. Okay, fine. All right, so let me give a couple of minutes. Vasi, do you want to download and let me know if you are successful?
Yeah, I'll give it a try.
Okay. Please do it right now while I'm walking this through, Vasi, so you can start practicing. So the next one is so we talked about the length, which is the length of the list, and so the next one is like multiplication of the list, right? So when you multiply a list, like L times 3, it duplicates it. Like, so you can see that the results here is -4 to 4, and then same -4 to 4 again, and then you have -4 to 4, 3 times, right? It does it in, just concatenates the list members, 3 times. If you do it like L times 5, you have a bigger list. So the next one is like looping through the list itself, right? So in Python, we talked about this indentation, right? So when you see this colon, it automatically, when I gave a return key, new line, it put me into an indentation, right? It means that any statements in the indented code will be executed as one block, right? So, and we will talk about if then else block, today, where we'll walk through how the whole thing works. But this is how it works, right? So if I do this, like for example, let me run it here. I'll say A equals, I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And you print A, this is what it is, right? So for, if I do the for loop, I will say for X in A, if I put a colon, right, it automatically indents me. And then I'll say print X. So you can see that it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It loops through individual elements within the list. Okay, so it walks through the list in sequence. So it'll go through from X in A. So the first one will be 1, second is 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So that's how it does it. So that's when we do the if then else condition, I'll explain you how the whole thing works there, right? So the next one is we're doing, yeah.
So looks like a new line character is by default part of print statement. Is it possible to avoid it? If I want to print all those in the same line, is it possible?
Well, this is how you do it, right? So in here we're taking individual element within the list, right? When you say for X and L, we're looping through individual elements in the list. If you don't want the new line and if you want to print the entire list, you just say A and then hit enter, right? So when you
Yes, yeah. My question was not specifically for this particular command. In general, print statement. For example, in C or in any other language like Perl, also, we always use a backslash and new line for the new line, right? If you don't include that, it will print on the same line. So you have
Yeah.
option of doing both the things. So in Python, is it possible or it's not?
No, Python works it with a new line. But that said,
Okay.
let me check on that and get back to you if there is a way to do that. Yeah, it's implicit, right? The /n is implicit in
Correct.
Python.
Correct.
Yeah, but let me take a note of this and I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Thanks.
So the next one is for if 100 in L, print 100. So what this means is it checks whether 100, the number 100 is in the list, right? If it is not in the list, it'll tell me like 100 is not in the list because this list contains -4 to 4 and 100 is not in the list. So that's what this means. Okay. So the next one is appending, right? So appending always adds one element. It only expects one element to the list, right? So when you do an append of 4, you can see that the 4 got added here, right? And when I do an extend of 5, 6, 7, it takes individual element within this list and then it extends the original list with those elements, right? So the difference between append and extend, and we talked about this in one of the classes before, I think I have it here. So what's the difference between append and, so in this case, right, we taught this example, you can see that when you append this list 1, 2 as a list, it appends it as a sub list, right? But when I do the same thing with extend, in this case, I'm having the same list, right? I'm passing a list as a parameter, but it unpacks the list and then adds it as individual elements inside the list. You got my point? So that's a difference between append and extend. Okay, so that's what it means, right? So in this case, when I'm extending 5, 6, 7, it goes through, running it again. So the 5, 6, 7 gets extended or individual, it unpacks the list and then adds it, right? And then when I do, uh, so now I'm doing an insert, right? At the fourth index, I'm adding 100, right? So 0 after inserting, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. The fourth index is this between -1 and 0, right? So I'm inserting a number called 100, number 100, in the fourth index. So that's how the insert happens here. And then when you, so what does L dot count of 0 means, right? The count of 0 is like on that index 0, what does a count, how many digits are there, right? So that's just 1. Okay. And you guys understood?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we're looking for the index number 6, right? And you want to know where that index 6 is coming, right? So if you look at this, you have to count from 0, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So the index of value 6 is 12, okay? So that's what it means. So you're looking at the value of the element within that list. We're looking at that value. So it's very important that you understand that, okay? I'm going to pause here. Check on Vasisht. Did you download Tony?
Yeah, I'm still working on getting it like running though.
Okay. All right. So then we're doing a sort. Okay. So what does a sort, list sort means, right? It's going to take sort the integers within the list in an ascending order, right? So it starts with -4 and goes until 100. And then when you do a reverse, it reverses the entire string within the list. Okay. So we talked about, there's one more thing I wanted to bring it up here. So the way, do you guys understand linked list and doubly linked list? Do you guys know about those things, data structures?
No.
Okay. How do I do can I use a whiteboard here or something? No. Okay. So linked list is something like this. So if I have, there's nodes, let's say, these are nodes. Can you see the screen, the diagram I'm putting there?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you look at this list that we have here, right? So we have like -4, -3, -2, -1, right? So here, imagine this is 4. This is -3. Bear with me, I'm using the mouse to type it or draw it. It's not easy, okay? So what does it mean, right? There are 2 pointers to this. The next pointer points to -3 and the previous pointer of -3 points to -4. Then the same thing here. So I'm putting dots here so you can do this. So this is what we call a doubly linked list. A linked list is linked, like they're linked with each other. And it's doubly linked, meaning that there is pointers going on both sides. There is a previous pointer and a next pointer. There is no previous pointer for, so this is basically the previous pointer here is null. There is no previous pointer to -4. The next pointer to -4 is -3. The next pointer of -3 is -2. And for the previous pointer for -3 is -4, right? So that's how, the linked list works. Okay, there is a single linked list, which is there is no previous and next pointer. Doubly linked list is, it goes both ways. So the internal representation in Python is this is how the lists are ordered and stored within the memory, right? So it stores like this and it walks the list, right? So walking the list means that you start from the beginning and then you walk the list. When I'm looking for a particular index, like index of 6, like where does the value 6 goes, there is no way of sorting this list, right? Python goes through, the interpreter actually goes through each element, and then to check for the value, if the value is 6 there. So in this case, it's going to go to the first one, which is -4. This is the first node of the linked list. And it's going to look at this node and says, okay, what's the value of this? It's -4, it's not 6. So I'm going to walk to the next one. So it'll ask the next node or get the next pointer. If you're using C++ or C++, most likely, right? It has pointers, or a Go language, for example. You are going to look at the next pointer. So you're asking the linked list data structure to give you the next pointer, and the next pointer will be -3, which is the second block. And then it's going to check for the value, and the value is not 6, and it keeps going, walks the list. So if nothing is available, so the last one in this list is, let's say, the last one on the list is -4, right? This is the value 4. And the next one to this is null. There is nothing there, right? So, and the previous to 4 is 3. Just to give you an example, like if you go with the list like -4 to 4, 4 being the last element of the doubly linked list, 3 will be the previous one, and the previous for 3 is 2, and so on and so forth. So that is how it works. What it does in the case of reversing a list is, when you do a reverse list, it basically, it doesn't reprioritize the thing. It just changes a pointer. It changes a pointer 4 to be your top of the list, or the head node, and then the -4 should be the tail node, right? So that's how the reversing works. It just changes a pointer. That is a memory representation. It's not going to take it and rewrite the list and reorder the list. You see my point? So this is the head, and this is the end, or the tail, right? So when you do a reverse, this becomes a head and this becomes a tail.
Got it.
Okay, so these are some of the things that you guys should practice. If you want, I can do another session on data structures. Like it has links, linked list, arrays. We're talking about lists right now, but queues, stacks. We can talk about all those different components. These are basic building blocks for any coding, right? So you need to understand the data structures very detailed to go through this. I'm going to pause here to see if you guys have any questions.
No.
Okay.
I am interested in data structure class.
Yeah, well, let's do that because I want to do this because a lot of these things are important to understand. You know, once you understand how the internal representation works, and it makes it very easy for you to go through that. Okay, so let me close out. So, okay, so now let me clear this. Oh yeah. So there is a way to we talked about. Um, let me ask you another question, right? So in this case, I have an old list 1, 2, 3, and then I'm pointing a new list to the old list. And when I add an element or an entry to the new list, what do you think will happen to the old list? Would it be 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3A?
It will be updated.
Updated list, yeah.
Yeah. So can you explain why that is happening?
Because you mentioned in the earlier classes that that's how the Python works.
Right. To give you yeah, that is true, Shali. Just to give a background information, how that works is, so let me go back to annotate. So okay. So now let me see, how do I clear this? Oh, here are all drawings. Okay. This is a pretty cool tool. I like this. So here, let's say, you know, this is a memory location, right? In your memory computer, right? So you have 1, 2, 3. Okay. So you have two variables here. There is an old list, right? So in this case, actually, old list, and then I have new list. Okay. So these are two different variables, right? There's an old list is one variable and new list is another variable. So in Python, what happens is it how do I draw? Okay. So what happens is it points to this memory location, okay? And when you say new list equals to old list, right? So here, when you say new list equals to old list or old list equals new list, what happens is now this is also going to be pointing to the same memory location. So that's why when I'm appending A to the new list, the old list will also show the same value. So that's how it works. Okay, so the object is the same, but you have two different variables that are pointing to the same object. Okay, but when you make a copy of this, right? And I'll walk you through the copy shortly. When you make a copy of the list, then you know it takes a copy of that, it creates another location, and then you know now they are totally different. Okay, so that's a concept, right? So there's one memory location where the value is stored, and then you have two different variables and they point to the same memory location. And when you're adding to that memory location, both values are the same. So that's why you see here that you know you will see both the new list and the old list having the same value. Okay. So the next one is popping a specific index, right? So in this case, we are popping number 5. And so what does popping number 5 mean? So I think this is the reverse list, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the 5th element. So when you pop a 5th element, it gives you number 4, right? So that's the popping. And then there is another function called remove. So you're removing by a value, right? So when I say L.remove 100, it looks for the value 100 in the list, and then that value is removed, right? And after the value is removed, we're printing, and then it prints the value 7 to -4. Clear? And then the last one is we're clearing the list. So L.clear will delete everything the list has. So the list will be pointing to an empty list. The location will still be there, but there is no value inside that. So all these values that you see here, 1, 2, 3, will be gone, right? And that's what the so when you after you clear the list, it's there's nothing there. Okay. So the next one is we went through this for so x to the power of 2, right? So we are, what does this mean, right? So we are, for every x in range 5, so the range starts with 1, right? So when you say range of 5, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you are doing a power, right? So 0 to the power of 2 is 0. 1 to the power of 2 is 1, 2 to the power of 2 is 4, 3 to the power of 2 is 9, and 4 to the power of 4 is 16, right? So that's what we are printing here. It's another way of, walking through the list item. And again, when you specify, like here, let's say k equals range of 10, print k, it starts from 0 and then goes up to 9 actually, right? So even though the range is 0 to 10, the upper limit is not included. It's to 1 minus the upper limit, or upper limit minus 1. Okay. So we talked about Unicode representation last week. So every, like we talked about UTF-8, 16 Unicode representation. So each one has got, in this case, the Unicode representation of S is the value of S is 115, P is 112, A is 97, and M is 109, right? That's what that means, right? So you're creating a list, but then what you're doing is you're mapping each element within that string spam, and you're creating a Unicode representation of that, and that's what it means. And then the output of this is created into the output of this is created into a list, right? And that's what you see here. Questions?
One question regarding the remove function. I think we discussed it last week. It removes only the first occurrence of 100, right? If there are multiple instances, it will still be there.
Yes. No, it doesn't. So we can try that, right? So if I say k equals, let's say, I want to check this, right? So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So let's say it's k. K dot remove.
Remove 4.
Yeah. So it removes the first occurrence of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So next one is, we talked about this lambda functions and general functions, right? Let me clear this annotate. So in here, I have a number, numbers equals 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And the result is you're mapping using the map function, but you're calling another function. The function is defined above, which is addition, right? So the function is addition. It takes one parameter, n, which is an integer. It's dynamic binding, right? So it can be anything. So in this case, we're passing integers, and it returns by adding to itself, right? So returns n plus n, which is if you pass 1, it will return 2. If it pass 2, it returns 4, right? And so when you run this, you can see that so when 1 is passed, it's 2. This is the result you see. When 2 is passed, it's 4, and then 3 is passed, it's 6, and 4 is 8. Okay, so that's what this means. Now, this is one way of doing it, for which you need to define a function above, right? You cannot define the function after this. It doesn't understand that. Whereas in Java and C++, you can define the functions anywhere within the code. But in here, the function needs to be defined in that order because Python is an interpreted language, so it needs to go through that flow. Okay, so the other one is like you can use a lambda function. A lambda function is where I'm specifying, like, instead of adding this addition, I'm not passing any addition function here. Instead, I'm defining a function, and that function is called lambda, and then it has x colon, and then the content of that function is x plus x. So when you pass a value x, the lambda function will return x plus x, right? And then that's exactly what is happening here. Okay. So that's another way of doing that. Okay. So now here there's a, I'm going to pause here. Is this making sense, guys?
Kannan, this is Aarti.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote, sorry, I'm going to the one above where we were doing the map.
Okay.
So I wrote the numbers, did the result, map, addition, numbers, print, list, result. It gives me an error, syntax error.
Okay.
If I run it.
You have the addition function there.
Sorry?
Okay, do you want to share your machine?
Are you able to see?
Let me see. Yeah.
So if I run this,
No, it's not return n equals n, return n plus n.
oh, I see. Okay.
And you can do anything, right? Plus is an operation, but you can use like, asterisk or division or anything, right? It's a function, it's a very simple function. And here we are just returning the value and adding it to itself. But you can write a complex function there. You can do if then else conditions. You can do any of those things inside that function.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so let me share again. All right, Vasisht, did you install Tony? What's your,
Yeah, I got it running.
so are you able to write the code?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so in here, the last one that we walked through last week was a list of strings, right? So we have another list which has 4 elements like sat, bat, cat, and mat.
Kannan,
And
can you share your screen, please?
oh, I didn't. Sorry. Okay, so the last one was this guy, right? So we have L equals these 4 strings here, sat, bat, cat, and mat. And when I do test equals a list, right? I'm generating a list. And I'm taking each element within the list, right? In this case, the string is sat, and I am taking that and converting that into a list. So that's how powerful Python is, right? All I have to do is just say map and then specify what type of map you want to do. It could be a list. It could be a Lambda function. It could be any other function, the ORD function, to convert into Unicode. And you can see that it now converted each string into a sub list in itself. So a list called L has got multiple sub lists. In this case, line 100, this is a list of strings, right? String values, like there are 4 string values here. In line 104, or like after line 103, that list becomes a list of 4 different sub lists. Like that's what it means. So you have sub list 1, which has got 3 elements in itself, S, A, and T. And then the second one has got B, A, and T. And then third one has got C, A, and T. And fourth one has got M, A, and T. Okay. So, so this is what we discussed last week. So I went through all these examples. If you guys want a few minutes to, see my screen and start writing this code and practicing, go for it. And then I would like to take maybe 5 or 10 minute break, and then we can come back and start today's sessions.
Sorry, a quick question. What is Lambda?
So Lambda is when you specify a Lambda, it's basically a function. It's an inline function. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the difference between like this code.
Yeah.
This code is in here. It's calling another function called addition.
Okay.
Okay. So that function is returning a value.
Right.
Takes a parameter and it returns a value. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can use this approach, perfectly acceptable, or you can make it inline.
Okay.
Okay. So in here, you're doing the same thing, but instead of having this whole function and everything, you're basically having a single inline function definition here. So it'll walk through this numbers list one at a time, and then it'll pass that, the X becomes 1 first time, X is 2 the second time, X is 3 the third time, and X is 4 the fourth time. So when X is 1, so lambda 1 colon means X plus X, which is 1 plus 1, which is 2, right? So that 2 gets filled into the list here. And the next one is 4, 6, and 8. And that's how it works.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll give you guys like 3 minutes to go through this, and then we'll take a quick, maybe 5 to 10 minutes break, and then we'll come back and I'll go through another set of examples for today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm copying this.
Vasisht, are you able to copy this code and test it out?
Yeah, I got it. It's working. Or
Awesome.
at least some of it is.
Okay. All right, guys, if there are no questions, let's take a quick 10-minute break, come back, and then 6:10, we'll regroup again. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, Kannan, can you please keep sharing your screen?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, while others are taking a break, I'm still copying.
Yeah, me too.
So, where it says line 99, list of strings,
Mm-hmm.
did you type that?
99, list of strings.
Line 99.
Yeah, that's this one. You mean you want me to print it?
Did you like type that in?
Yes, he typed it and it's a comment.
Yeah.
So you have to put a hash sign so it will be grayed out.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So in Python, on a specific line, or if you want to, let's say, if you want to comment all these guys, in at least in 20, you can do Alt key and number 3, and that'll comment it. Alt 4 will uncomment it.
Okay. So whatever we are commenting, that's just for our reference and it will not run the code.
Yeah. It will not run the code. It's for, yeah. Okay.
And then can you also scroll a little bit up where you are defining the function addition?
Yeah. Okay. Addition. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you. And one more question on line maybe 104.
Okay.
So if I want to print only one of the elements of these lists, how do I print it? Is it possible? Like
mean-
if I want to print only A out of that SAT,
Like this?
yeah, I want to print only A out of everything.
Only A means what? In which element?
The second element in the first sublist.
Oh, okay. So if you do test of 0, sorry. So that gives you the first one, right? And that's how you do it.
Okay, okay, got it. Thank you.
Because I'm going to mute myself and I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay.
Guys, quick question. Line 100.
Yeah.
In line 100, 1 equals sat, bat, cat, mat.
It's not one, it is L.
Oh, it is
It's
L.
any name that you give for your list.
I can make it capital L, right?
Yes, you can.
So
But then
in
you
the
will have to make
end,
it capital everywhere else where you are using it. For example, in line 103,
okay,
or test
line,
also you are
yeah,
doing
the
it.
next line, okay. So what's happening is for me after mat, it is showing some kind of error for me. So after mat, I put closing bracket and the colon. So the colon and bracket.
No need to put colon.
Sorry, not colon, the apostrophe.
Yeah.
So I put mat and apostrophe, and for some reason, the last apostrophe and the closing bracket, it is
It's
showing
a
some
single
error.
quote, right? Just wanted to check. You are putting single quote, one that is close to enter or near letter L. You're not putting something that is close to escape, right? That is different.
No, I'm putting the one next to enter.
Okay.
It's the same bracket that I started with.
Then
For
it's
some reason, it's
can you share
grayed
your
out.
screen? Is it possible to share screen, or we have to wait till Kannan comes back?
I'll share it once he's back.
Yeah.
I'm having the same problem. I'm getting some syntax error after I put the same thing.
Can anyone of you share the screen?
I can share. Let me know if you can see. So you see line 29 of mine.
Yes, definitely.
So this is grayed out and it's giving me.
You see it? There is one single quote is missing in front of the bat. BAT bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I see. Wow. It is something. Okay, got it. All right. Yeah, it's successful now. The second one is SAT. So did we lose Kannan's screen now?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
but that's fine.
That's
It will be bad soon. Yeah, got it.
All right, should we get started again?
yes, please.
Okay, so I want to show you a few other things before we go on to another one. So one thing that you can do is there's a package called module called strings, like Python. So if you do directory string, it gives you a lot of members of that string. So you can, like for example, you can do ASCII uppercase. So you can see I can do A to Z equals string dot ASCII lowercase. So if you print A to Z, you get this, okay? And if you do A to Z equals string dot ASCII uppercase, you get this, okay? So now let's say, AZ equals, A to Z equals list of A to Z, okay? What do you think AZ will look like?
All the letters with commas in between.
Yeah, it'll be like this, right? So what if we want to print AZ 0, 12? So in Python, this is the upper limit is not included. So the first one is 0 is A. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? It doesn't include 12. But the total number of members or components is like 12, right? So it starts from 0, goes on till 11. So the total is about 12. Okay. And sorry, my video is not on. Okay. So this is legal, right? AZ 0 to 12 is legal. But if I do AZ 26, because there are 26 characters in the alphabet, right? So when you do AZ 26, is this legal or illegal?
It's going to check for the one after 25 and it will be null, so it won't give you a result.
Right, you're right. So it's illegal, index out of range. However, I can do this 0 to 26 and it's perfectly legal. Okay. So there is another concept that it's called striding, right? So let's say, I want every second character from this list. So the way to do that is 0, 26, and then I will say :2. So now it'll give you every second element, right? So 0, so A, and then C, and then E, G, I, H, and so on and so forth. So if I do 3, every third, right? Or simply I can do this 0, : 2. That'll give me the same results as, it's called striding in in Python. Make sense?
Kannan, can I open a new file or do I have to use the previous?
No, you can do that, or you can, like I'm doing this on the shell, right? So I have a Python shell here. So I can.
So how did you start the shell? Because if I just start from AZ, it's giving me an error.
No, you had the Python shell, right? So if you share your machine back, I can show you where you saw the error messages, where you saw the results. That's the Python shell.
I think we
So
need
I'm
to
sharing
look
my
at your code
screen.
from the beginning, where
Go ahead and share your screen.
where you are importing the screen.
Yeah, that's your Python shell right there. You have the 3 arrows there. That's your shell.
Yes.
Yeah, you can clear, right click on that and you can clear.
I can. Oh, okay.
You can clear it, and then you can now type import string. No. Import string. We're not writing code here. So we are writing code here, but we're not writing any comments here. Just type import, 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 space string. Yeah. Enter. Now type A to Z equals anything, it's some variable, A to Z equals. Equals string dot ASCII underscore lowercase.
Sorry, after ASCII?
Underscore lowercase. Yeah. Enter. Now type A to Z and enter. Yeah, that's what.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now let me share again. So we talked about striding, right? So what if I want to reverse this string, right? So A to Z, if I do A to Z is this, and if I do A to Z colon, 0 colon 2, it strides. Now I want to reverse this thing, this entire string, right? So if I do A to Z 0, colon -1, you can see that the entire string gets reversed in Python. Okay. So these are slicers and strides that, is very, very powerful, that you can use it for string manipulation. Okay. So because we talked about, so here AZ is this, right? So you can also do this thing, right? So when you do an ID, remember we talked about these two, right? What is it? Old list and new list, right? So old list, new list. So ID of old list and ID of new list. You can see that why those two values were the same. When you added an element A in here, somewhere we did this here. So we appended a value A to, so we had two lists, old list equals 1 to 3 and new list equals old list. And then we appended an A to that. And then when we printed both the list, it was the same. The reason being that the ID is the same. So that's how it means, right? So if you say A equals 10, B equals A, ID of B and ID of A is the same. Okay, so B equals to 200, ID of B. So the ID of B changed, right? So that's, you know, if in doubt, you should use this ID function to to practice it, right? So another one, right? So we had A to Z. We had AZ equals this, right? Now let's say BZ equals AZ colon. What do you think BZ will be?
And can you show like what's the value of AZ, please?
I just did. AZ is this.
Did you define anything up about there?
Yeah, AZ equals list. I converted the A to Z into a list. Over here somewhere, AZ equals,
Okay, got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
So now let's check the ID of AZ and BZ, right? ID of AZ is this, ID of BZ is what? They're different. So now when you append, so AZ dot append 1. What is AZ? You get 1 there. What is BZ? The 1 is not copied. So what's the difference between this approach and this approach?
There are two different memory location because earlier they were pointing to the same memory location, both the variables, but here is different. So
Exactly. So what we're doing here is we're making a copy. Okay. We're making a copy of this list, right? So just to make it easier, let me write down here. So in here, if I say new list equals old list, sorry. Okay, now when, okay, so now let's do this one. Instead of A, let's append B, okay? So now let's run this code again, okay? Clear this, run this again. And you can see that the B is not added to the old list because I made a copy. This is making a copy. That's what it means. So when I make a copy of the list, I have two different memory locations independently. Is that clear?
yes.
So that's a major difference. So I guess with that, let's move on. So any questions so far? I want to move to another section called statements. All right, so let's move to statements. So, so let's say, you know, x equals 5, y equals 10. And I told you that, you know, the indentation is very critical in Python, right? So if x greater than y, you put a colon, and then anything indented below that will be executed as that block, right? The scope of that block. So we're assigning value of x equals 1 and value of y equals 2. So when you run this code, clear this again. So you can see that the x and y are unchanged because this if condition didn't execute. Okay, because x is not greater than y. X is 5, y is 10. So 5 is not greater than 10. So it didn't execute this else condition. Okay, so But if I do this, if x is less than y, then I'm assigning x equals 1, y equals 2, and print x and y. You can see that those two values are printed here. Okay. So that's a very simple if condition. Now, one of the things that Python also does is you can define statements that spans multiple lines. Okay, so you can have a statement like my list equals 111222333. You know, like until you end or close this with this square brackets. You can go to any number of lines. You know, for readability, and then you can do the print. When I do the print, it says this one, right?
Is there also indentation necessary on line 21 and 22?
It automatically does it if you use an editor like this.
But it should
Yeah,
not matter, right?
it should not. You can have different lines. Yeah. So so the another one is, I want to walk you through some while statements, right? So the first one is while true, reply equals input enter text. Okay, if reply equals stop, break. If not, print reply dot upper. So if I say hello here, you can see that it prints hello in uppercase. Okay, and it'll keep doing this, right, until, because it's a while loop, because it's true. When does it become false? When reply, as long as reply is not equal to stop, it's a true statement. So when I say stop here, it exited this while loop, but it entered into this while loop. Okay, so because I have different examples here. So now in here, we have while true, reply equals enter text, which is waiting here. And whatever reply I'm giving here, let's say hello. So do you know what will happen here? Because it says the print statement is, it's converting the value of reply into an integer and then raising it to the power of 2 and then printing that value. Okay, so what do you think this line will result? Because I typed that value as hello. What do you think this will be? Any takers? You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we are thinking we need a minute.
Okay.
Will it print by?
No, the answer is very simple. It should give you an error. So you can see that value invalid literal for end with base 10 hello, because it's not able to convert hello into an integer. Right?
That's what I was wondering. It's not a number. How will it work? So.
Because
So
it's
my question is, what's the point of writing print by as a code?
Can you repeat that again, please?
So after you gave the while true, reply, stop, break, print, reply to the power of 2, what's the point of the line 39 print by?
Oh, it will when you reply. Yeah, that's a good point. So it doesn't actually execute at all, right? It'll break here, right? And this line will not execute. Well, I'll come to that, right? That's a good point. So yeah, you're right, Shali. So what happens here is that, I'm checking for the reply. If it's not stop, right? Then it tries to print it, right? Let's run this again, okay? this is a second while loop. So when I enter the number 2 as a value, it's raising the 2 to the power of 2, which is 4, right? And I think when I do a stop, it breaks out of this loop and then prints a by. So you can see that it printed by here.
I see.
Because it broke when you do a break, it breaks from this while loop. The while loop starts from here, 35, and goes on till 38. So it breaks from that scope and then goes to the next line, which is 39. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it didn't print the first time. It gave you the result of by the second time. So what was the difference in your execution the second time?
Because when the first time I entered 2, right? And it gave me 4. So reply equals input, enter text. And the value I gave was 2. And it goes to line 37. It checks if reply equals stop. The reply is not equal to stop. So it goes to the next line. It prints the value of 4. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
And immediately goes back to 35 because that's a loop. It still goes into the while loop, right? The while loop will exit, become false when reply equals stop, and then when you hit the break. Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
So now we are entering the third while loop. Okay. So I'm making it a little bit more complicated, but it's called with exception handling, right? So I'm typing while true, reply equals input, enter the text. If reply equals stop, then break from this while loop. Else if not, reply dot is digit. Meaning what happens is whatever value I have on reply, this is digit function will tell you whether it contains digits or non-digits. Okay. And then if it contains non-digits, it'll print bad 8 times. You know, some error message, you know, I decided to use bad 8 times, right? But if the result is going to be digits, then it prints the power, right? So let's say, you know, I do hello here. Now it'll print me the bad 8 times, right? And then it keeps going back to enter the text. I'll say Python, it'll say again bad 8 times because, you know, it hits this line 46 and it says, okay, Python is the value of reply and the value of reply is not digit. Hence I'm going to do this and then I'll still go back to the line 43. Now, when I enter a valid value, 40, it gave me 1600 as an integer because now I got the reply. It checks for the reply equals stop. It's not stop. Then it goes to line 46. It says, is this a digit? Is this not a digit? So that is not correct because it is a digit. So it comes to the else block and then it does this print statement and then goes back again. So now when I do a stop, it'll give me a by and goes to the next set of code, which is another way of doing this. Okay. So what's another way of doing this? It's called the try catch block, right? So if you've done Java coding or C++ or C# coding, you have a concept called try catch block, right? Well, exactly in Python, it is not a try catch, it is try except, right? So it's the same code, but it is a little bit more graceful exit, right? In here, you're checking whether it's a digit, right? And what if you have to write some complex logic there, right? It's not a simple check as whether it's a digit or a string, right? It could be a complex thing. So you can use this try except block, right? So in the try block, I'm converting or casting the value of reply to an integer, meaning that I'm converting everything to an integer. So I cannot convert a string to an integer, but I can convert an integer to an integer, right? So that's what it means. And when you try to do that, when you're trying to, let's say the reply has got a has got a uh, has got a text, and you try to convert that into a number, um, it's not going to, it's going to fail, and then it's going to print it's going to jump to the exception block, and then it's going to print here. If not, then if this is successful, then it'll go to the else, and then it'll raise it to the power of 2. So let's say, if I say hello here, it's again going to do that because it went to try block. It's not able to successfully convert it. It went to the except block, and then it's printing this bad 8 times. And then if I'm entering like 50 here, it's coming into the else block and then raising this to the power of 2. Okay. Any questions so far?
So try catch block is just to raise an exception, something just to show an error, or like what's the
Yeah.
use?
So the try catch block is, it's called the exception handling. Okay. So you have to when you write a code, right? So look at all the progression of the code here, right? I started off by writing a very simple while statement. And when I try to, so the first one is a reply, right? The second one, I'm blindly converting into an integer, raising it to the power of 2. So when I run this code, when it hits this print integer, converting to an integer, if the reply is a string, and that was giving me a runtime error, right? So when you write an application, you don't want to have runtime errors, right? Because they're ugly and they break the code and then they get out of the code. Okay, so there is no graceful exit from the code. It's equivalent to crashing, right? Like blue screen to death, or like something like that you see on Windows sometimes. So your application crashes. So sometimes the application exits, right? The whole application closes. And you don't want that to happen. So that's why you need a try-catch block. It's called exception handling. So you have to put the code into those try-catch block where basically you're saying that, hey, try this set of code. If anywhere in this code, any exception happens, runtime exception, because there is a difference between a compile error and a runtime error. A compile error will come, in traditional languages, I'm not talking about Python. In traditional languages, a compile time error is when the code is compiled to the machine language. It's going to check for the grammar, and it's going to say, okay, your syntax is wrong. This is not right. You have not used the variables. It gives you all kinds of errors. And if you didn't write the code correctly, and then that's a compile time error. But then when you may have written the code correctly, meaning that the grammar is correct, but then, it could result in a null value, or it could result in an exception, like you're trying to access a memory location that is invalid, right? Let's say your list has got 100 items and you're trying to look up 101th item or 102nd item, right? And that's index out of range. And then it's, the compiler is not going to highlight those kind of errors, right? Those errors will happen at runtime. And that's what the runtime error means. So in the case of runtime errors, you need to write code which uses this try exception block. It's much more readable, and it's preferable. That's how you write the code. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
So now the next one is, I'm trying to do this, right? So here I have a slightly different way of handling this. I have a I'm converting into integer, right? And then I'm doing, so what happens here when I'm using a floating point? Like, for example, if I do this, right? I think this is the last one, but let's see. Say how, and then I'll say 4. Yeah, so let me rerun this again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Can we just like comment rest of the part, and whatever you are running, we just
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Stop. Yeah. 3. 3.
the shortcut you are using for commenting?
Alt 3.
All three. Okay.
Okay, so now let's run this again. So when I do, let's say, I want to give a floating point, because in here, we're converting into an integer. So let's say if I say 8.0, what will happen here?
It will be converted into integer.
So let's say I do 8, right? Somewhere it's wrong. Oh, sorry. I forgot to do this. 3. Okay, run this again. So if I do 8, it's 64. If I do 8.0, what do you think will be there? I'm in this code, okay? I'm in this section of the code. What do you think will happen?
64 only, because you converted into integer.
Okay, you think so?
Yeah.
Okay, so it says bad. Okay, it's because it's not an integer, it's a floating point.
Yeah, but we are putting integer in front of the like floating point, so
Yeah.
it converted.
It doesn't work that way. It says, it checks whether, is this an integer?
So it's not a conversion, it's just for checking.
It's for checking, yeah. Well, it checks and it also converts, right? So it does both things. So it says integer, it's not an integer, and then it tries to convert it. It doesn't do that. So instead, if you do this, right? If I do stop, I go to the next block. In here, I have a float instead of integer. Okay. So I kind of, combine this else condition inside the try block. Okay. So you can use float as an alternative, right? So now if I do 7, it'll convert that 7 integer into a float, and then it'll give me 49.0, because it's converting that reply into a float, raising it to the power of 2 and printing it 49.
Why it's not converting integer? I mean, floating into.
That's, again, that's how it's designed. So when in doubt, go with float. So it'll handle both integer and float. So now I can do like 7.4, and it gives me a floating point, raising it to the power of 2. Make sense? So then now let me stop this, and we're done. So let me uncomment this, guys, so you guys can copy, sorry, Alt 4. All right. Does this make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Kannan, can you send this code in chat or somewhere? So
Don't think it copied everything. Okay. That's one. So, interply. Okay, so now I need to copy these guys. Okay, you guys got it?
thank you.
Kannan, can you explain the indentation here? I see a little bit difference between where you are putting the break statement in different while loops. So what is the
So
difference?
you can do both ways, right? You can do break here, right? Colon break, you can do that. Or when you give an enter key in Tony, it'll automatically indent it for you because it sees this colon and then it indents it for you.
Okay. So it is the same thing, both.
Yeah.
So
This,
basically, if you have only one command, then you can just put it on the same line. Is it?
yeah, exactly. Because I'm in the indentation, when I do another enter, so because it's a break, sometimes they do this, right? So if I do enter here, look at this, it goes to the same line,
Yeah.
the same column as B, right? But if
Right.
I do the same thing again, it knows that, you're breaking from this code. So you're going to put it on the same scope as if statement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an ID, right? But when you're going for interviews at FANG companies, like they don't give you an ID like this. You have to write it using Notepad. And so you should be able to, understand how to write the code, understand how the indentation works.
Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question. What is the main document?
Main,
Somebody put it in the chat. Can you copy that in the main document, Shally?
Guys, I can send you all these PY files somewhere,
Okay, thank you.
What I have noticed is it usually I'm not able to copy from the chat box.
The same here. Everything is in the one line only.
So that
So what
means
I did is I put it in Word document.
yeah, I just copied it in.
Yeah, I just copied in a simple Word document. So at least when I practice, I have something to refer.
That's what I did.
Okay, I have to drop off. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, Adi. So we could logically end the class here because I have another set of examples, assignments, and expressions that I wanted to go through, but I don't think we have enough time today. So maybe you guys can practice this and then, you know, we can adjourn today and then continue this next week because there's quite a few concepts here.
If we were referring to the PDF document, the book, what stage are we when we cover today's session?
It'll be 10.
Chapter 10. Okay, thank you. So by next session, would you want us to, what would you want us like us
Well,
to?
you know, see, yeah, if you guys can go through the assignments and expressions, you know, like basically it's from chapter 1 through 11, right? Just go through that. We have quite a few ground to cover, right? So we'll see how we are going. And then, you know, I literally have 2 books here, right? I have this, and then there is a Python cookbook, right? So if you look at this book, Python cookbook, it's more into data structures and algorithms, right? So I know Anita was talking about understanding data structures, right? So in order to get to that, we need to cover, you know, the basics of Python, right? Like this has got queue stacks, you know, like how do you do dictionaries?
Can you send this book, Kannan?
We already did that, right? Before, I think it's.
I just have the other one. I don't have this one. Did you send it?
Is it
Yeah,
not?
I think there was a link which was sent out for downloading.
I don't have it either.
You don't have it either. So how do I do this? Let me see if I can put it in the chat.
Thank you.
I can drop a file.
Maybe you can drop this link in WhatsApp group.
Oh, I added that to the chat. You guys can download it from there. Still downloading. Okay, so it's sent to the chat. Anita, do you see if you can get it from the chat?
Yeah.
And then the other book is Learning Python. That's what we are doing right now. The Learning Python is what we are going through right now. Chapter 11. The Python cookbook is more advanced topic. So this is the 3rd week, right? We're doing. We planned for 8 weeks. We had first 2 weeks and then we had a break. Now this is the 3rd week. And then, you know, maybe we can, I don't think I can cover both the books in the 8 classes, but we'll see how it goes. And maybe we can continue after that if there is an interest.
Thank you so much, Kannan.
Okay, so can you guys see those 2 books on the chat?
Yes.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Let me know if you can download it or having trouble.
I downloaded it, saved it.
Okay, cool.
For me also it worked.
Right, okay.
So
This book is a little bit advanced topics, right? On Python cookbook. It's an awesome book.
So how important is it for a person who is nuanced to Python to understand this vocabulary of to be able to proceed further in order to understand the complexity of these loops of codes?
Yeah, well, you know, see, the thing is, there has to be a goal, right? So learning a language is one thing, but then you need to have some sort of certification or something, right? So going through like lead code and hacker rank and, start practicing writing code. You have to write a lot of code to become more comfortable. So it becomes a second nature for you to write the code. And it'll help you, Shali, to get into the field of programming, right? So let's say you're comfortable writing a lot of code and, you apply for an IT job where there's a lot of coding required. The first question the interviewers are going to ask you is like, what language are you comfortable with, right? And if you're saying Python, then that's they're going to ask you to write code on Python, and they will give you questions on that, right? So let me see if I can pull this one, right? So if I go to hacker lead code, so if I go to lead code, so in the problems, you can see that there's different sections of problems, right? There's a daily challenge, there's algorithms, databases, shell, concurrency. So if you look at algorithms, right? Let's look at a simple, there's easy problem here, contains duplicate, right? So what does it mean? So this is a title that says contains duplicate, and so they are giving you they're saying, okay, given an array of integers, find if the array contains any duplicates. Your function should return true if any value appears at least twice in the array, and it should return false if every element is distinct. For example, the input is 1, 2, 3, and 1. The output should be true because it has duplicate. 1 is a duplicate. Okay, and so you can look at the solution here. So now it gives you like if you want to use Python, it gives you, this is a solution. It gives you a function called contains duplicate, which returns a value Boolean, whether it's true or false. And you are supposed to write the code here and submit the code. You can look at the solutions here if someone has done it. So they have given you a solution, an approach, like how do you do this, right? There is a naive linear search approach. There is another approach called sorting, and there is another approach called hash table. And there's these are different approaches that you can take, right? So how does sorting, if there are duplicate integers, then they will be consecutive after sorting, right? So in the example that he has given in the description, if you sort this array, you will see like, 1, 1, 2, and 3 would be the sorted array, right? So the array here, or the list here is 1, 2, 3, and 1. It is not sorted. When you do L.sort, okay, so the L.sort will become 1, 1, 2, and 3. And now you can easily compare it, right? So they'll be next to each other. If the first element is equal to the second element, right? Like I said, there is so in this case, what will happen is, let's see, let me show you this example. So if I annotate here, so here so you have this 4 elements here. Sorry, my diagram is horrible, but you get the point.
I got the point about sorting as being one of the solutions, but you still have to write the code. First off, you sort, but then you have to get the result as false and true.
Right. So when you sort this array, it becomes 1, 1, 2, and 3. Now you have to walk the list, right? You have to say if this is equal to the previous value, there is no previous value here, because remember, this is a doubly linked list. And the next one, we walk to the next one and say, okay, if this value, like you do a for statement, right? For X and L, if X is equal to X minus 1, then break it because it is duplicate, and enter and exit as true, right? That's what it means. You see my point?
Wonderful, excellent, thank you.
Yeah. So annotate. So you can look at the solution here, and so he's sorting. So the first thing, let's look at it. He's doing this in Java, right? So the first thing he's doing is array.sort. This is a different language, but you get the point, right? And then now he's walking through that list, right? If nums of I equals nums of I plus 1, right? If the first element, if 1 equals the next element, then you return true. You're breaking it. If none of this condition, if this condition is not happening, then it'll finish this loop and then it'll return false, meaning that there is no duplicate in the array. And then there's complexity analysis, right? See, the first thing is solving a problem. The second thing is, what is the optimal way of solving the problem?
Yeah, but
yeah.
Just a quick question. I missed that part. You were saying we have to sort it. So why do we have to sort it?
No, there are different approaches. There are different approaches to solving a problem, right? So you can, what is the problem here? The problem here is that, I have a list and I have duplicates in the list. Okay. How do I find the duplicate? I have to remember each one of them, right? So I have to take the first element. In the naive approach, I have to take the first element and I have to compare the rest of the members in this list to see if one is existing there. If one is not there, then you go to the second one and see, walk the entire list and see if 2 is there. Walk the entire list for 3 is there, so on and so forth. That's a naive approach. The sorting approach is that I sort the list, and then when I sort the list, the numbers that are duplicates will be right next to each other. So when I sort 1, 2, 3, and 1, the sorted list will look like this: 1, 1, 2, and 3. So now I can start from the first element and say, okay, hey, I is 1, I plus 1 is this one, right? If they are same, then I'm done. Like there is duplicates.
So this is the more efficient way of doing.
Well, there is, right. So there are 2 or 3. A couple of approaches are accepted, right? There's another one called hash table approach, right? And this hash table says use a dynamic data structure that supports fast search and insert operations, right? So there is, we're out of time, but we can talk about this, right? The bottom line is there is order of complexity and space complexity. There is a time complexity and space complexity. When you go to a Facebook interview and they ask you a question like this, if you are not able to, there's one way of solving the problem, but then if you're not optimally solving, they're going to come back and question you, saying, hey, do you think this is an optimal way, or is there a better approach to doing that?
I understand.
Right? Because you don't want to write code that is going to take forever to execute, right? I mean, even though these code will be, like you won't even notice how fast they run, but it's still, right? If you do the metrics behind that, it'll still be like, see, look how complicated the first code is, right? Contains duplicate, you're passing an array, you're going through individual loop, and then you're doing sub loops underneath that. There's going to be a latency, right? It'll exceed the time required to solve this problem, right? And that's what you need to do. So this is like somewhat advanced. So going back to your question, Shali, what's next is, this is an evolution, right? So you start learning how to code, and then you start solving the problems.
Yeah, so there's more than one way of doing it, and it can be executed different ways. There's
Right.
more solutions for one, and we need to know more about the vocabulary in order to get to the solutions. So, okay, I understand. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, guys, I gotta go. My dog is acting crazy, so I need to go. We'll talk later. Thank you. We'll meet again next week, Saturday, 5 p.m.
Thanks.